All right, thanks everybody for joining me today. We're going to cover everything I love about SEMrush and everything I use within it for my work for myself and for my SEO clients. I really love SEMrush, which is why I've always talked about it in the Digital Marketing Kitchen or my podcast or in, training, whatever it is, because I really do love it. I've been using it for years. And I'm not telling you all of this because I want you to go buy it. It is definitely a tool that I found that has been super helpful. And I think the main reason it's been really helpful is it saves me a whole heck of a lot of time. You can find this information in a lot of cases elsewhere, but it takes a lot more time and a lot more digging, and you don't have proactive information coming to you. And for me, that is a lifesaver. So it's definitely worth the subscription money I pay each month for it. So let's just start from the basics. What is SEMrush? So SEMrush is an all-in-one digital marketing software suite, and it has a lot of information for research and for reporting. It supports traditional SEO, technical SEO, pay-per-click, keyword research, competitive research, even social media marketing and some public relations. And it really tries to also go like the next step forward and help you with content marketing and campaign management. So it's got a lot to offer. I primarily use it for SEO purposes, specifically for competitive research, tracking my own activity, and then running site audits. That's where I do a lot of activity in it. And that's where I'm going to concentrate a lot of efforts today. Before though I start like jumping into the functionality, I just want to kind of go through some common questions I get about SEMrush, right? So like the first one is, how does it compare to other softwares and products that are available in the market? Well, first one, I was actually looking up some of these online to see what ones that people would really want to know the comparisons of. And it's funny because the ones that I was seeing in questions are the ones that I've already, gone through in my head already. So like the first thing, one that actually surprised me was SEMrush versus Yoast. Well, so Yoast is an SEO plugin for WordPress specifically. So the website software, completely different than SEMrush. SEMrush is going to help give you data, reporting, information so that you can use that in your SEO process. And Yoast is just another tool in your SEO process that you have going on, but it's something that you use actually on your website itself. So completely different tools. I use both tools and I recommend both tools to my students and my clients. What about SEMrush versus SpyFu? So I used to have a membership to both of these software tools. And I think that they're, pretty good value, both of them. SpyFu, it had cheaper pricing for a really long time. And when it was a really nominal price, I would keep a membership to it or a subscription to it every year. Since it's gone up, I just don't find the value there anymore because I use SEMrush. But I will say this, I think that SpyFu does have probably better information for pay-per-click, and SEMrush has better information for SEO. So if you are, very heavy into pay-per-click, then SpyFu might be a good option for you. And it is pretty economical still. Even though they did raise the prices, it still is pretty economical. What about SEMrush versus Ahrefs? So I have used both of those tools, and I had a subscription to Ahrefs for a really long time. Ahrefs even, they sponsored my podcast for like 6 months or something. So I mean, they're a good tool, and I definitely recommend people, you can try that out too, because it is a solid tool. Where I would draw the line between the two is I think Ahrefs is really good for backlink profiles and understanding the activity of backlinks and tracking them, and just giving you good visibility both for what could be wrong, what could be working, and what you might want to use moving forward for backlinking. I don't think SEMrush is as strong as backlinking as Ahrefs. So whenever I've had a client who has had any type of backlinking issues, Ahrefs is my tool. But that's where I kind of draw the line, because then everything else I use SEMrush for. What about SEMrush versus Moz? So when I spent the year rebuilding Imagine's digital marketing department, they had Moz when I came in the door. And at first I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm going to be able to really try out Moz and see what it's got to offer. And I could see the information, the reporting that they had set up for clients. What we quickly found is it didn't offer as much as SEMrush. When I started to show the team the things that I was using in SEMrush and, you know, how I use the tool, they kind of just sat there and they're like, okay, well, Moz can't do that. And so that was, you know, one of the reasons that we migrated away while I was there from Moz, and we moved all of the reporting back over to SEMrush, because it did offer a lot more information. Moz is a good tool without question. I just think for a lot of digital marketing efforts, SEMrush has just got more information than Moz. Okay, so the next one is Screaming Frog. I have an active membership or subscription to Screaming Frog as well as SEMrush, and I will probably always keep my Screaming Frog license because it's really cheap to have an annual license. They both do really good jobs at crawling websites and looking for technical SEO issues. That's where Screaming Frog stops, though. It's not going to give you all of the reporting about ranking and top pages and things like that that SEMrush can give you, particularly when it comes to your competition. I think the other thing that I have a challenge with Screaming Frog is it runs locally on your computer. And when you're trying to crawl a large site, that becomes problematic because it's just dogging, you know, bringing the performance of your computer down. I live in rural Michigan on a farm, and, you know, I'm stuck with DSL. So I can't have Screaming Frog sucking up all my bandwidth, you know, during the day while I'm trying to work. So from that perspective, I would have to turn Screaming Frog on and walk away and come back. But it does definitely have a purpose. So, you know, certainly a tool to kind of investigate if you've never actually looked at it before. So the last one is KW Finder. Y'all have heard me talk about KW Finder a lot because I really do love KW Finder, and I can't live without that tool either. I use both SEMrush and KW Finder a lot, but where I draw the line is I use SEMrush for competitive research, for tracking volume, or excuse me, tracking performance, website audits, looking kind of at markets as a whole, looking at competitors to a given URL, because KW Finder can't do that. What KW Finder excels at, though, is it's really good at giving you keyword variations, giving you search volume data, giving you pay-per-click rates, and it allows you to, you know, create those keyword lists and save them and, you know, export that data. So KW Finder is kind of the end of my research process. I do everything at the beginning with SEMrush, get all my keyword universe, you know, going. I use KW Finder to expand my keyword universe, to get those volumes and export it and that type of thing. I also use KW Finder to see who's ranking on page 1 and what kind of metrics they have associated with them for that given URL, like backlinks, Facebook, shares, you know, domain rank and things like that. So, you know, they both have purpose, but for me, they have different purpose. So kind of to, you know, wrap up, you've got Yoast Seo, which I love. That's inside WordPress. You know, that helps you optimize on page. SpyFu is a great tool if you're wanting to do a lot with pay-per-click. Ahrefs is a great tool for backlinks. Moz, I just don't feel like it's got much purpose for me whatsoever. Screaming Frog's really good for a low-cost technical SEO crawler. And then KW Finder is really good for looking at keyword volumes and variations and things like that. And then really for me, for SEO, everything else I do kind of falls back on SEMrush, which is why I talk about it all the time and why we're doing this presentation today. So another question that I noticed that people were asking is, where does SEMrush get its data? So I actually did go to look that up. Unlike KW Finder, who will use Google's API and pull data from Google, SEMrush has its own proprietary software, and it is pulling data through its own, you know, data sources and algorithms, and it doesn't really actually give you that information. It just says that it's proprietary, and, you know, they continue to work on it and advance it. Which, you know, that's great. I will tell you that a couple of things about SEMrush's data is smaller sites, it doesn't have as quality of data as it would a larger site. And by quality, I mean, the data is not there because the sites are small, but also sometimes it's inaccurate. So when you're going to look at information on a very small site that doesn't have a lot of SEO juice or, you know, activity associated with it, sometimes when you look at the traffic analytics or you're looking at the ranking stuff, it's just the data is not really strong. When you have a larger site, you know, the data becomes much more strong. And I've really compared the ranking reports in SEMrush to like Google Search Console, and they're very close and they're very on par. When you look at like top pages and things in SEMrush, they really do match up very well with Google Search Console. Sometimes the data is a little bit lagging, but that's okay because it saves you so much time than trying to weed through that Google Search Console data. It doesn't matter. You know, I'm okay with the fact that it might be a week behind in some cases because it gives me a great pool of data. So another thing I want to talk about before we jump into the actual demonstration and reviewing the features, what are my likes and dislikes, right? Because I'm strong-willed and I'm very opinionated. Of course, I'm going to have some likes and dislikes. And they change a little bit over time, but I'll tell you, like, what are the things I love about SEMrush? I love that it's got powerful features. I can't live without them. For as long as I'm going to be an SEO or even a marketer, I'm going to use SEMrush as long as it stays in the current state, because it is like my must-have tool. I love knowing what is happening on websites in search. I love being able to dig into my competitors and get good information on them, both for me and for my clients. My clients are always surprised at how much information on competitors you can dig up from SEMrush, which is great. It saves me tons of time in comparison to using like Google Search Console. It gives you proactive data, like the website auditor is really proactive. It pushes you the information if you have it scheduling to come every day or week or whatever. So it's very, very powerful with that. And then it does offer new features all the time. Like I go in and it's like Christmas. All of a sudden I see this new feature sit in SEMrush that I didn't know was there, which is pretty exciting for me. It's because I'm a nerd and I love that kind of thing. But what are my dislikes? Because there are some dislikes. I think that there is a really poor user experience in how they manage the features. Things that I had part of my plan all of a sudden randomly disappear. They're like, oh, that's not part of your plan. You have to upgrade to get that. Well, I don't think that's cool, because honestly, if I've been with you and using your subscription for 4 years and I've had this feature for 4 years, I don't think you should be taking it away from me. I don't like the way that they do that. So that is the negative. The other negative I have, and there's really only two, is, the first one is the features getting removed. The second one is it's really hard to crawl large sites. So I have a client website that is well over 1 million pages, and I can't afford to go use SEMrush to crawl that and to do audits, although I would love to be able to do it. I'd love to be able to have it crawl and really get good data for that. But the way that the pricing structure is set up for large scale sites and enterprise level, digital marketing presence, it's not compatible in my opinion. I think there's probably other tools that would be much better when you're really at that enterprise level. But if you look at my likes or my loves and my dislikes, that's pretty uneven, right? I got a whole lot more likes than I would dislikes. And so that's just kind of something to keep in mind as, you look at this software versus something else, or, if you're using this and you're considering going to another software package, everyone's going to have the things that they love and don't like about something. So that's kind of just an overview of what SEMrush is. How does it compare to other competitive software tools in the market for SEO and pay-per-click, and then things that I just personally love and don't like about the software. Now I want to kind of jump into the features. And the things I'm going to talk about today are, what can you do to find out information about your own website or blog? How do you really get into the data, and what data is there that you might not even know is there? Because like I said, they add new features and it's like Christmas morning for me. Next, I'm going to talk about digging into competitors and what you can find out for competitors. And then we're going to wrap up with some information on the website audit, because there's a lot more than you probably realize. And if you start to really dig into it, you're going to see that there's more than just technical SEO there. There's a lot of goodness. So with that, let's jump in. And hopefully everybody can see the screen really good once I start to share. I did put the fonts pretty darn big for it. All right, so I've got the screen up, and let me see if I can get the chat and going in a new window so I can see it. If anybody has any problems with anything, just do a Q&A, because I've got that open in another window so I can see it. Okay, so we're gonna go forward with Just first, we're going to check out one website. And now for this, let's assume that my website, I'm going to use very large websites so we have lots of data showing. So we're going to assume that I'm GoDaddy and I want to go in and check out what's going on my website. And so that is in the domain and overview, and you just put in your domain and hit search. And then SEMrush is going to come back with a lot of overview information for you, which is a great snapshot of what the heck's going on with the website. What do I look at when I'm on the screen? What do I really care about? Well, I care first about organic searches. I look at the organic searches, which is the number of visitors coming per month, and I look at keywords. So the number of keywords, how many keywords are in this website's universe, keyword universe, and then the traffic cost, which is just kind of an estimate. If you were to do pay-per-click for these phrases, what would they cost? The reason I look at the traffic cost as well as the other metrics is because you'll see differences in certain industries. So you could have a website with a ton of keywords and some traffic with like no traffic cost because it's branded search terms or search terms that don't really matter. You know, people just aren't really using them. Then you'll see what websites that show up in here with the data that have, you know, small volumes and things like that, but their traffic cost is really high. And that's because they're going after very popular search terms that are converters so that they have a high pay-per-click amount. So I look at all three. The other thing I always like to look at is pay-per-click. And I know that I'm an SEO girl, but pay-per-click does provide value. If you are looking at like a competitor website, for example, they've got pay-per-click, or even if you're doing keyword research for yourself, you want to look at their pay-per-click because those are most likely phrases that are converting into revenue or leads or, you know, whatever, and they should be given good, you know, really good attention. Now, where you can fall down with this data is if the company that you're looking at doesn't have anyone monitoring their pay-per-click. And I have gotten that into the past where I've looked at it and, you know, I may know the owner of the company or senior executives of the company. And I just want to call them and go, who's managing your pay-per-click account? Because you shouldn't be bidding on this. So, you know, you got to take that with a grain of salt. But also it's a good data point, even if you're doing organic SEO, because you are going to get some really good information there. The next thing I look at is backlinks. I want to just know overall the backlink profile. Are there a lot of backlinks? Are there a lot of different domains that those are coming from? I look at things like anchor text because that will help influence the rank. I also look to see who's doing shady stuff, and you will be surprised at what you'll discover in the backlink profiles when you start to do research on other websites. And I would tell you it's probably 2 out of 10 or 20% of the time that I'm working with a client and I see some shadiness going on in their backlink profile, and I'm just like, oh, it's going to come back to bite them. Or you can see shadiness in the backlink profile related to a website where they've had good performance and then they've fallen off, like just all of their organic has gone away. And a great way to figure out why that happened is looking at the backlink profiles. All right, a couple of you know, additional just data points, and we'll go into these in more depth, is the traffic trends. So you can see things, you know, various data points. And if you hover over any of them, you'll be able to, you know, see the numbers for that specific month. And we come here and we're like, whoa, what happened in September of 2018? So from SEO consultant perspective, I use this data when I'm qualifying a prospect for like a potential SEO client. I come in here and look at them. And when I see a dip like this, I say to them, hey, I see a little shift in your SEO in September of 2018. Anything that happened that you want to tell me? And sure enough, they come back and go, oh yeah, well, we hired John to do link building and he did some stuff and we got into a penalty with Google. That's a red flag for me because A, they've had a penalty, and B, they didn't disclose it. So, you know, this is kind of really important information. And then the other thing about this is you can see if there's been dips here with traffic. You can also kind of compare it down here to the keyword universe because it's 2 different data points. And if you see a corresponding dip in both, you can go investigate what might have happened, which is really important for overall SEO health. Okay, so this is overall traffic trends, humans coming to the site, hopefully. You have both the blues organic and the oranges pay-per-click, but then down here, this is the keyword universe. this is really important for both you and for clients as well, or even looking at competitors that you might think is really strong and you realize they're not as strong as you think. And that's because you can look at a keyword universe and you can go, wow, they've got like almost 400,000 keywords in their universe. But when you start to look at what's ranking where, you could see that only, you know, like 1% is sitting on page 1 and everything is sitting on, you know, page 10 of Google. Well, it doesn't matter if they've got 400,000 keywords sitting on page 10 of Google, because nobody's going to find them there unless it's a really specific high value search type of environment. So things that's something I really look at for all cases when I'm doing data. Now this little guy is new. He's actually starting to show you what are, so for GoDaddy's keyword universe and where they're showing up in search in Google, what kind of search is it? This shows you like its knowledge panel, it's a local pack, it's top stories, it's images and things like that. Why does that matter to you? Well, you want to know what any website's ranking for when it comes to knowledge graph elements, whether it's a knowledge panel, which is the guy that shows up on the right hand side. It's a people also ask, you know, type of thing. It's the feature snippets. It's that position 0 at the top. If I see a competitor ranking for one of those and I look at their data, I'm like, that's weak data. I can do better. I care about that because then I can go after it. The other really important one for that is local pack. And the local pack is important because if you are trying to set up a search campaign, either national or local, you need to be looking at the differences between those terms. You're going to assume that search phrases are maybe national when they're not, when Google's really using the local pack and it's a local search term. That should change how you're approaching your SEO process. You know, so I had a clarity call with somebody who I love. It's been someone who's been a student before, and she just wants, she's a local SEO person. She has a new client who's a national campaign. And I said to her, you know, the difference is you want to stay, in this situation, you want to stay clear away from local searches. These are national, a national company. They don't care about local, they care about national. So you want to weed out those local searches and focus your attention because you have limited time on national searches. She's like, how do I find that information? I'm like, SEMrush has got you covered, and they do have you covered, and I'll show you how to find that. Because it just gives you more information. Prior to having this information, I've literally hired an admin to go in and pull up searches in Google to tell me which was national versus local, so I knew which ones I wanted to go after. And there's the reverse is, you know, if you're dealing with like a local doctor, you want to make sure, or you are a local doctor, you want to make sure that you're trying to go after local searches first. That's your priority, and then national searches can come after. So just kind of some really good information. This just shows you the information we looked at the top, you know, where things are within the pages of Google. What are their top performing keywords, which we'll see in another report. Who are their main competitors? I love this because people say my competitors are XYZ, but when you start to go look at them, like WP Beginner, not a website host like GoDaddy. However, they are a core competitor online because Syed Balki's done a great job of ranking that site over the last 10 years or whatever, how long it's been around. So even though Syed and his team are not a direct competitor, they are an online competitor to GoDaddy and everybody else in the WordPress space or hosting space because they'll share a lot of keywords. They'll compete against each other with content. The other thing I look at is branded content. So again, you might see these keyword volumes and search volumes and go, oh my gosh, they're so strong. But then you come down here and you're like, but for 84% of it's branded. So of this searches, that means 84% are using search terms that are associated with this company's name. That means that they already know who the company is. It is much less powerful from an SEO standpoint than the non-branded. And the cool thing is that any of these reports, we can really just click in and we can get to those non-branded search terms and really make sure we're focusing on the right thing. And then you have the same type of information down here from a paid perspective. So really, really powerful when you're kind of looking at this type of information. So let's kind of just dig into the organic search phrases or search terms, because I want you to see the difference between the different types of data that SEMrush offers. And again, I'm not covering all the features. I'm just showing you what's really, really important to me. Here's the metrics we had before with number of keywords, the dollar value of those keywords and the search volume. Now you can start to see information. So the keyword matched up to the specific URL that's ranking. This information is in Google Search Console, but you can't piece it together easily like you can here. I can also quickly see whether it's a local search term or it's got a knowledge panel or what other data is associated with it. Has there been a shift in ranking going up or going down? What is SEMrush's view of the actual monthly search volume? And what percentage does SEMrush believe that their website is getting traffic from that search term? I always sort this table by traffic first. I want to know the highest percentage of traffic coming into the site for a given search term, because now I get to see what is driving their traffic, where are they getting the conversions from, and you see it is really a lot of GoDaddy terms. So one might think that GoDaddy is super powerful and with SEO, but they're not nearly as powerful as one would think. Okay, so now let's look at, so we see that, right? But what I did skip over was this overview tab right here. And when I go to the overview tab, I'm going to see more information, so I see more information on those search engine results types of features that they have. That knowledge graph, that featured snippets, the people also ask, you can see all the data right here. It's really cool when you have a small website and you think that it's not like performing, and then you come in here and you're like, oh, well, I didn't know I had feature snippets ranking, for our website. And so this section up here, right, says linking to your domain. This means you're ranking for this, and there's links coming into your domain for this type of search result. This is the non-linking to your domain means I'm showing up in search for this. There is a featured snippet in this case, but it's not my website. And these are kind of important, to know. Local searches. So if I wanted to go in here and say, okay, well, Google shows up for 7 local searches. What are those? I just need to click on the local pack and they will come in and it'll show it to me. And so now I can see exactly what those are. And you can quickly change these up here if you want by changing, I can say, okay, well, I want to see, instead of local pack, nope, I just want to see featured snippets. And SEMrush has done a really good job of allowing you to get to this information quickly. And now it will give me that information as well. Now I'm seeing just where they rank for featured snippets and what URL ranks for that. Important data point. While we are looking at US searches, you can change to a number of different countries if you have international presence or you have clients who are international. So another big thing that I look at is pages. What URLs are truly ranking in search and bringing in the most traffic? Again, I'm going to sort this by the number of visits coming in per month, but I look at this as well as the keywords. So what pages actually have keywords, associated with them? So again, is GoDaddy as strong as we think in SEO, or are they living off of branded search phrases and we're just return visitors coming back to the website? Well, let's look at kind of their top searches, or excuse me, their top pages. Their homepage, which I would expect, right? Because they do a lot of advertising, a lot of sponsorships and things like that. Now we start to go and say, well, where are people going? Well, we know that they're a host. Is that their top, their top pages? No, not really. We see email, we see their who is, which I use a lot, which tells you who actually owns a website, domain name searches, right? We haven't gotten to hosting yet. Now we get down to the website builder. We're still looking at domains. Now we get to coupons. Notice hosting hasn't even showed up yet. Hosting's way down here. So if that massive volume that they had coming in each month, which I think was like hundreds of thousands, only 7,000 visitors are actually coming into that hosting page. That tells you a lot of information. Well, what if I wanted to know how many keywords were associated with that actual page? I just click on that 470 and it will show me all the keywords associated with just that URL. And so it'll populate up for me. So really good information when I'm trying to see what I'm ranking for, or I'm looking to see what a competitor is ranking for. Okay, so what else do I look for? I start to look at competitors. I want to see really like what's going on with competitors, and I always want me and I want you to jump out of your box. You have in your mind who the competitors are. They're never who you think they are online. They're always different. So come in here and start to look. And so SEMrush is going to show you who it thinks are the competitors, and it starts to match up websites that have Similar keyword phrases, right? Remember I mentioned WP Beginner. WP Beginner is a third, it's the third competitor because they write a lot of articles on hosting and email and domain registration because they're affiliates for all of these websites. And so it's going to shift your view on who you should review, right? And so all of these, if you're in WordPress or you're in digital marketing and you have websites, these names are going to be familiar to you, at least some of them. But so we look at the familiarity, but then we also look at the number of common keywords, and then we look at overall keywords, overall traffic volumes, and then you can see who's paying a lot for pay-per-click, all within one screen, which is really, really nice. And that can just help you evaluate, are you really looking at the right competitors that you're considering? And then like you've got the common keywords right here. So say we wanted to see what keywords do we overlap with WP Beginner, and now we can start to see some of that, additional data. And it's really cool because GoDaddy, or excuse me, SEMrush will give you this overlap right here. So we can see of the keywords, how many overlap, and we can see it visually, but then we can start to see down here some tables, which will give us really good comparisons. And who's weak, who's strong, who's untapped, like what keywords are like is nobody really doing well on, so we can really start to get good information on competitors. Now what if I wanted to do more competitors? Well, we can come in here and look at, oh, SEMrush is already popping up some names for me. We saw Namecheap, we saw HostGator, and let's go and we'll just put in WP Engine. And now we can, oh, I got to actually spell that right then. Now, the competitive research only works if you're actually putting in the right URLs. Okay, so now let's compare 5 websites together. I love this feature, and I love to be able to use this with clients because it helps just illustrate the things that I'm saying. Data speaks volumes to people. And it's one thing for you to ramble on about SEO to your business partner or to a client or to your spouse, but it's another thing to be able to use data and actually show it to them. And this is a strength in SEMrush because it really allows you to do that. So I can see by these little colored bubbles where everybody starts to overlap. I'm a visual girl, I love color, so this really speaks to my soul. And then I can come down here and I can start to see where there is overlap between the domains. So this is the shared tab where I can see where everybody overlaps. Now what do I want to see? Where I'm strong, right? Now I get to see where I'm strong versus somebody else, because these are my positions where I'm at, or what I want to see where I'm weak. Okay, well, show me where I'm weak compared to my competitors. And then it starts to show me information where WP Beginner is #1 for WordPress reset password, and I'm 20. If I care about that word, that's a problem. I got to investigate that further. And then there's all keywords, and you can do lots of different things. You can flip who you're actually looking at the beginning, so instead of saying this from the perspective of GoDaddy, I want to see it from WP Beginner. Let's now look to see where WP Beginner is strong versus weak and things like that. So really good information. And notice there's organic, there's also paid. So you can kind of flip that and look at the paid information. Notice it kind of changes a little bit because not everybody's doing pay-per-click, or they're very selective on the phrases that they're using for pay-per-click. Okay, so this is found underneath the keyword gap. You can go directly to the keyword gap and enter that in, or you can go the route that I did. Notice also as I'm doing things, there's always the locations up here, and then there's desktop versus mobile. So you can look at 2 different types of searches and get different types of data. Now, historically, I have found that SEMrush's desktop data has a lot more information than the mobile, so it's always the default that I go to. Notice also that there is a date, right? And this is where you could upgrade your plan and then go and get other information and get historical information. Very cool if you have a lot of money and you can afford to do that. I personally am not going to pay for that because for the most part, I get a lot of the information I need from the license that I have. Okay, so we want to look at a couple of more things. Now, I also love to use traffic analytics. So traffic analytics is great for going in and looking at somebody else's stuff, right? So I know where my traffic's coming from if I'm GoDaddy because I have access to this in Google Analytics. But what if I'm GoDaddy and I want to look at a competitor and see where their traffic's coming from? It's a whole different thing. I don't have access to their Google Analytics. Where am I going to go? Well, maybe I'm going to come in here and I can just start to go and add people in. So let's pick Liquid Web. And I can compare those two domains. I can see overall visits. These are not just visits for SEO. It's all visits, unique visitors, pages per visit, average duration per visit, and then bounce rate. Now, these will not line up specifically with Google Analytics because there's no way that SEMrush can truly have this data. It's estimates, right? And then I can scroll down and I can see, well, where is their data coming from? Where's their traffic coming from? Well, I can see GoDaddy relies heavily on direct, right? We do have some search too. And then you're not seeing much for Liquid Web because the search volumes are so different, okay? So let's get rid of Liquid Web and let's go pick a different vendor. Let's pick HostGator. And then we'll do WP Engine because I can do up to 5 websites at a time. And I can't remember what the other ones were. We'll try Bluehost. Oops, again, I got to spell it right. And then we'll throw in WP Beginner. I use this all the time, both for me when I'm doing competitive research for myself, for my clients, and when I'm also in the sales process with clients, I will use this information too because it shows the potential of really what's available because you can steal somebody's traffic, right? You just need to know what traffic they have and what you want to steal. Okay, we're still seeing that GoDaddy is the lead, right, with overall visits. We're seeing that the next in line is Bluehost, and then we go to WP Engine, and then HostGator, and then WP Beginner. And I'm really surprised at that. I thought WP Beginner would be bigger, you know, would have more volumes. This is showing you current changes from April to May. Everybody's up. Why is everybody up? Because people stopped searching during April because of COVID. The world's starting to come back to, you know, to normal a little bit, and people are changing. So when you're looking at reports, remember that the world stopped searching for normal things in March and April, and we only searched about coronavirus. Now we're starting to go back to our lives, and the search trends are starting to go up. So we should see a lot of improvements with things. Now I can down here see their visits, and I can start comparing those data points visually, the visits, and then I can see pages per visit and bounce rates and things like that. But what I really care about is this guy. Where's their traffic coming from? Where does search or SEMrush think traffic's coming from? Again, GoDaddy thinks it's heavily coming from direct. And you're looking for the scale of things, right? So if I look at Bluehost, they're purple. Who's got the biggest purple bar? Well, the biggest purple bar is in direct. So Bluehost is getting most of their traffic through direct. What about the orange guy? WP Engine, direct as well. HostGator, direct as well, and then WP Beginner, also direct. So GoDaddy's throwing all of these off because it's got such big volumes. So what if I just took out GoDaddy entirely, and we'll bring WP Engine, or excuse me, WP Beginner over here so we can see more like traffic. And sometimes you got to do that to really get to some uniform information. Now my bars start to actually look more reasonable, and I can see better data. And we can see that WP Beginner is the strongest in search compared to other data sources, right? For those websites, which again, doesn't surprise me because I know that they've been good at SEO for years. And then the next we start to see is Bluehost, and then you know, as a percentage of their overall traffic, the next one is going to be, who is it? WP Engine. The other thing that's cool is you can see what countries their search traffic is coming from. And this is a lot of times fairly accurate, I've noticed, when you start to compare it to analytics. And I don't typically look at this information in analytics, but SEMrush puts it in front of me and I'm like, oh, didn't see that. So very, very helpful. Okay, so these are graphs that, you know, so we looked at the keyword gap report for competitors. We're looking at this as well. I used to have access to Audience Insights, and I don't anymore. That would tell you where traffic's coming from. That's a feature that they took away, which I'm not thrilled with, but it is what it is. So let's go look at Market Explorer, because this is a cool one. It gives you some limited information under the lowest plan, and then you have to pay more to get to the additional information. So it'll take it just a second to come up. Okay, so just while we're waiting for that, Bill had a question. If SEMrush isn't great at tracking traffic for smaller sites, what software is better? So I got to do a caveat to that. So it's not as good with small sites as it is with large sites, Bill. It's really good with large sites because you can see there's lots of data. With smaller sites, if no one's ever looked for them before in this tool, the data is not there or it's not very much data. But it will track smaller sites as long as somebody's coming in here and looking. So Bill, if you have a subscription to SEMrush and you put in and you're looking at you know, five different sites, it seems to be that you might not have data to start with, but data will start coming after time. It's like that kicks off some type of process in SEMrush to go look for that website and track that data. So I wouldn't go away from SEMrush because I haven't found a better tool, to be honest with you. This is the best tool I've had for small and large sites alike. I'm just telling you that I know that large sites data is pretty accurate and the smaller sites not as accurate, but it's still good. And when there is no data, it's usually because the small site doesn't have data to begin with. Like my farm site, it's done a really good job at tracking the information from my farm website, even though it's only really been in existence for like a year and a half, and it's only really had traffic for the last year. And the data is pretty accurate. So don't let that kind of send you away, because I didn't want to do that. Okay, so this is looking at a market overview based on the URL we originally put in, which was WP Engine, or excuse me, WP Beginner. This just shows you who is kind of in this market, who are they competing with? And then there's the whole market, and then there's narrow. So the whole market brings in like WooCommerce, which isn't a new site, it's a software site. ThemeForest doesn't do hosting or doesn't do articles, it's actually selling themes. And so you start to see different ones. And then if I do narrow focus, it should get websites that are closely related to the one that I have. And it's funny because now we start to see WP Engine and SiteGround and HostGator, which are all hosting companies. And that's because WP Engine or WP Beginner makes a lot of money off of hosting companies with affiliates. So they write a lot of articles for that. So according to SEMrush, it kind of thinks that they're a hosting company. And when we look down here, the share of the visit, we can start to see that still. This gives you a good overview of, so overall, like who quickly you can see who's getting the most traffic, right? And this is, again, this is the total traffic. It's not specific to a source like SEO versus direct. That is available here, but you have to upgrade your membership to actually get that information. So lots and lots of information from competitors. I could spend forever going through this information and really just like finding myself lost. And not only do you have, you know, like the keyword analysis, we also have backlinks. So if you want to really dig into backlinks of multiple competitors, you can do that as well, just like we did the keyword. Since we have limited time, I'm not going to go down that route. I want to jump over to the site audit because the site audit is really powerful as well. And by the way, if you all have questions you want me to answer at the end of this webinar or training, I'm happy to do that. Just throw it in the Q&A section. Okay, so let's go to a site audit. So the site audit is under the projects feature, and you basically go in, you create a project for a specific website or domain, it could be a blog, and then you tell SEMrush what type of tracking do you want to do for it. It has social, it's got keyword rank tracking, it's got a lot of different things that you can do. I just selected for this one, I wanted to sit and track the technical aspects of the site because it is really powerful, and I want to make sure that you're going to be able to see this. So this goes in and crawls the site, and you can set the number of crawls that you want to do. So this little gear over here shows you all the types of data points that you can select. Do I want it to run daily, weekly? How often do I want this audit to run, or only once? Do I want to set a max in the number of pages? Because you only have so many pages crawled or URLs crawled as part of your package, you need to be judicious in what you're going to actually crawl. So in this case, I set it to 5,000 because I really wasn't sure how many were there. How would I know how many are there? Well, you can get an estimate. So if I come over to Google and I type in site:maximumhunting.com, I can get a rough estimate from Google of how many's there. Now, this is never going to be all the total URLs, but it's what Google's giving us an estimate what's in the index. So it says 754. I would double that just to be safe when I go to run it. And because I had lots of crawls available, I just put it to 5,000 to see what came back. And so it was actually 2,000 that SEMrush ended up crawling. Now, when I first started using this tool, I would come in here and I would say, okay, great data. I'm going straight to the issues. And we'll look first at the issues, but then I'm going to show you what else lies in here, which is really cool stuff. So this gives me all of the issues that it found on this site. And it will give me all of the things it checked as well. And these are green. So if it checked something and there's no issues, it's going to have them with the 0 and show them as green. So you just know that, you know, they were there. And then I can start going through and looking to see all of the different things that may be wrong with the site. Now, this is a site that I built for my husband years ago. I probably would say 10 years ago, and it hasn't had much love in the last 7 years. So I know there's issues, and this is why I picked this site, because it's just a hot mess, and it's, you know, because nobody's loving on it. So we can go through and see, you know, what's wrong. So it's got errors, warnings, and notices. Errors are definitely things that are going to hurt your SEO efforts, and you want to make sure that they're fixed. So just we'll look at a couple of them. Internal links. Internal links are an issue because Google uses internal links to figure out the meaning of a specific destination link, as well as what URLs have the most links. So I want to know what that kind of information is. And it starts to go through 404, meaning it went to crawl a page and it got to a dead end. That's a problem. Mixed content. Well, that means that you've got content on your website that has SSL and non-SSL, an issue with Google. And that's why this kind of stuff's up in the top, right? Broken canonical links. Canonical links are really important to Google. They tell us this in their webmaster information. So that's an issue. So that's why all this kind of stuff is up here at the beginning. Now, what if you run into something and you don't know what the hell it means? You can just come over here and say, I don't know what this means. You click on that and it will bring up the description for you, which gives you some nice little information on what you could fix. And now keep in mind, you don't want to just know that you've got 947 internal links that are broken. You want to know what the heck they are. So if you just click on this, it'll actually give you an entire list. So this is the page that has the link on it. This is the destination link that doesn't work anymore. So we could quickly export this to Excel, which is great. And I use this all the time with clients. So like I use Basecamp to my project management. I export from here and I put it into a tutu in Basecamp so that I can track it with the client until their development team can get it fixed. If you're using Trello, you can actually export this right over to Trello from here, which is pretty cool. Okay, so let's go back to the issues just to kind of give you a feel for the other things that could be wrong. See, we've got warnings down here. You'll see JavaScript issues, uncompressed pages, missing meta descriptions, broken external links, problems with H1 headers. It's not going to pick up everything, so it's not going to tell me that my header structure for semantic HTML5 coding is off, but it will tell me that I have multiple H1s on a page and things like that. And this, again, this is very technical, but it's still very powerful because technical SEO matters in SEO. And look at I keep going and there's tons and tons of stuff. And now there's some stuff down here. Some of these I consider just to be noise and I can mute them. So there's one notification where it always says your H1, what is it? I think it's your page title is the same as your meta title. Well, yes, in some cases I would like it to be. And it's just trying to tell you that you're not optimizing your meta title fully. Well, great. In some cases that's true, but in some cases it's not. And you can just come over if you don't want to hear it, you can just mute this and it will no longer be reporting that issue for you. And this is based on a website by website basis and not globally. Definitely helpful. And then I've had cases where like there's clients and based on their software, they can't fix it, right? I don't need that keep showing up for me because we know it's a known issue. We know we can't fix it. So we're just going to kind of ignore it for temporarily, basis. But I can always come and unhide it and have it pop back up for me. So this is super good. And you can see lots of information and there's exports from this main screen as well. that you can do, you know, the crawled pages, all of the reports. You can do a PDF of this too. And, you know, so Excel or PDF, great reports coming out. Other information, which I didn't look at this when I was first starting to use this tool. I found it a while afterwards and I was like, oh, how did I miss this? Now, you might be wondering how many URLs are actually in your site, because you may not be able to see them from like your CMS, like WordPress, or you're working with a client and they don't really know, or there could be dead stuff sitting out there that's floating around in their server that you didn't know either. This will give you a list of all of the pages that it's crawled, which is super helpful because now you're going to discover URLs that you didn't even know were alive, you know, still. I find lots of issues here. The other thing I love is coming in and looking at the site structure. So this is going to start breaking down the site architecture for me to let me know, you know, kind of where stuff lies. This is wonderful for seeing cases where there's not, like the website went to SSL and it should all be HTTPS. But all of a sudden you look down here and you're like, well, what the heck? There's like 300 URLs sitting in the non-secure version of the site. Where is this coming from? But the best thing is you know that's there. Like this is giving you that information. And it's showing you all of the different content silos available, and you can click in there and see more. So I could click into, let's say, the category and see what belongs in the category, right? And it's actually, you know, blog posts and recipes and taxidermists and things like that. So good information that you can just continue to drill down further and see like really good data. All right, but I'm not done because there's still more. Okay, so I also love the statistics. So the statistics, you can look at percentages like this or a graph. This is going to show you things that are not necessarily in the issues, but are still major issues that need to get resolved. So a big one is SEMrush crawled X amount of pages and it saw X amount of pages in the XML sitemap. Why are things out of sync? Well, we can look at it by the graph and see how they overlap, or you can go over to the list and see percentages. Now, if SEMrush crawled, I think it was 2,000 pages, it found 1,800 of them in the XML sitemap, but then it discovered more, right? Why were there more that were not in the XML sitemap? What's going on? It means that they're out there and either you forgot to set up your XML sitemap incorrectly, or there's remnant URLs that shouldn't be live that need to be removed and have 301 redirects created. Just so it's, you know, it's again, it's alerting you of issues for you to investigate further. Another big one is canonical links. Every URL should have a canonical link. And I found that poor CMS solutions or custom coded things don't have canonical links. That's an issue because Google needs that canonical link to know the single moment of truth. What is the real URL it's supposed to be using? And then also from the canonical links issue is there'll be WordPress plugins that will cause issues with no canonical links, or like themes and plugins that will hijack it. There's just a host of issues. So you want that as clean as possible. I love the crawl depth because it quickly shows you where content lives. I've come to a website before and been like, oh my gosh, the majority of the content is sitting in like the 7th level of the website, which means Google's taking 6 clicks to get there. Well, we know if stuff is past like the 3rd level, Google's not going to embrace it for search. It's going to get harder and harder to rank that content. And this provides you lots of information quickly on things you didn't even know were an issue. E-commerce sites have had massive issues with that. And so like, again, things you want to be paying attention to. What's your link profile? Of the crawling that SEMrush did, how many pages actually have more than one link coming into them? And that's important because you want your most important pages to have lots of links. And again, this is giving you lots of data that you can actually go investigate further. At any point I can come in here and go, okay, well, what doesn't have a canonical link? So there's 3% of them. I click in there and now it starts to show me this list. And I can kind of jump back and forth around the data and really get to the heart of what's wrong. And then I can export it so I can work on it later. I can give it to a client or I can give it to a developer to fix for me. All right, so we do have comparable crawls. So if you've been running this for a while, you can actually come in here and say, okay, it'll show you by default the last 2 crawls. but you can actually change it to go back further. If you've been crawling a site for 6 months, you can go all the way back like 6 months and go, what happened back in 6 months, and get that information. And then you can see some visual progress as well. So lots of wonderful information within the website audit area. Projects also have really good information and reporting for keyword tracking. So if I said for this site, I want to track 500 keywords, and you proactively tell me where I'm at and track progress from week to week or month to month, whatever, it will actually track that information for you and email it to you. So another area, although we don't have as much time today to go through it all, like I said, there's so much information here, and I'm just like giving you the things that I use. There's just a lot more that is available that you can dig around. My goal is to really show you what matters, you know, and what I really find valuable. Okay, so a couple of things I want to talk about before we close up today is SEMrush does integrate to other software. So Google Search Console, Google Analytics, Google Ads. It can output data to Google's Data Studio and produce wonderful reports both on your ranking and keyword information and top pages. It can do the site crawl over to reports as well. That was something that I did that we created reports when I was at Help and Imagine, and it was great for really ongoing clients or even you, so you have that information automatically pushed over to you. So it can also connect to Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest and Instagram and LinkedIn and YouTube. And the best part is it not only gives you information on you, it can give you tons of data on your competitors as well. So you can kind of compare your social media profiles to theirs, see who's more active, see who's got more love, and it gives you ongoing reporting for that. And then, like I said, you can export this issues to Trello, and then it's got actually an integration to WordPress as well. So lots of information. Okay, so a few things. By the way, if you've never used SEMrush before, or if you want to try it out after seeing this, I do have a 14-day trial that they gave me. I think their normal trials like for a couple of days, but they gave me a 14-day one. So I will put the link in for this, so you can get that if you want to try it out. One thing I want to though talk about is from a subscription point of view. This is one of the things I do like about SEMrush a lot is if you find yourself maxing out on what you have available, you can actually extend it. So you don't have to go like, cause they've got different level plans. You don't have to jump from one plan to the next plan because that becomes really cost prohibitive. What you can do is I don't use a lot in this secondary plan or this third plan. I use the main starter plan, and oh, by the way, I want to be able to run more site audits, right? Because that's what I do with my clients. You just can come in here and buy more of those site crawls. So you actually like go click what you want to buy, whether it's keywords to track or it's the pages to crawl, and you buy more credits. And then you can do it like temporary, or and reduce it down the next month if you've got like a specific project you're working on, or you can say, I have 20 retainer clients and I need to be able to crawl monthly for everybody and give them data. So I need to bump my plan up, and then it will only charge you for that stuff that you're using, which is really, really cool. In my opinion, I really think that that's a great benefit of SEMrush. It makes it just really, beneficial for its users. All right, I've rambled for a long time. So let's talk about some questions that you might have. Okay, so Anne-Marie asked, what is the process to disavow a toxic backlink? So Anne-Marie, you can actually connect the backlink audit, because there's an audit backlink in here as well. You can connect that for the project to Google Search Console, and you can mark stuff to disavow and kind of push that process over. But I will tell you that Google has come out, and even recently, and said, listen, you really don't need to do that if you don't want to, because they know that for the most part, they know what's toxic for backlinks, and they know what's just, a backlink that you didn't create. So my advice to you, without question, is if you have a backlink profile issue, like a serious backlink profile issue, yes, consider doing a disavow. But if you just see a few things that SEMrush is calling toxic, don't worry about it, because Google already knows it's crap. And for example, there's certain websites, and it's like something like World something, and there's certain other ones that I see them on everybody's backlink profile. Google knows that that is crap that you've not created. It is not going to penalize you for those links, because they know that you're not purposely trying to manipulate anything. You're not creating those. So don't even worry about those. Don't bother with a disavow file. The other reason Google says, like, don't do disavows unless you absolutely have to, is because a lot of times people do more damage than good. They disavow good links along with bad ones, which really, does hurt them. So again, just to kind of summarize that, if you don't have a manual penalty against you for backlinks with Google, you really don't need to create a disavow file, unless you have a manual penalty or you see a bunch of stuff that was really manipulated that is going to cause issues potentially, like you really were doing black hat SEO stuff, then consider the disavow, but otherwise don't worry about it. Okay, so next question is from Miss Susan. Will the site audit work for sites that are not live yet? So if you've got sites that are like in staging, Susan, which I think you mean, and that are not public to Google, yes, because the site audit actually doesn't go through the Google index. It's just going to the URL that you have and crawling that URL for every link it finds. So you can definitely do it. You might have to, if you've got blockage on there, you might have to temporarily open it up so this crawler can get to it, or you can actually go in your robots.txt file, say, please allow the SEMrush crawler to come through and view the site. So there's different ways that you can get around it, but absolutely, I crawl sites before they go live, and then again after they're live, so we can do like a quick cleanup if there's anything it finds that we missed in the go live process. Okay, Christopher asks, SEMrush always points out my sites are not AMP. Yep, me too. And guess what? It's not going to make me go to AMP. Christopher, I don't think that AMP is for every website. I just think it's overkill for a lot of sites. For new sites that you're trying to do specific things with Google, yes, AMP can be a benefit, but for the majority of corporate, companies, small businesses, or mid-market companies or blogs, you don't need it. It's just, let's just ignore it. And I pretty much do ignore it for sure. Okay, so last question comes from Bill. If SEMrush isn't good at tracking, oh no, I already answered that. What software is better? So we answered that already. If anybody else has any questions before we wrap up, just let me know, whip it into the questions, and I'm happy to answer it. I will go through and post, like I said, the link to the free trial if you have not tried out SEMrush yet and you want to give it a spin, because it does give you 14 days and that's a lot to do with it. Really, like I said, I love SEMrush. I've used it for a really long time. The things that I don't like about it really aren't as great as the things that I do love about it. And I use it daily. When I say I use it daily, I'm probably popping into it 10 at least times per day. And no matter what I do or where I go, SEMrush is kind of going to go along with me because it's my must-use tool. So that's it. We will talk to everybody for the Digital Marketing Kitchen. We'll talk to you all on next Wednesday when we do open office hours. Bring your questions and Corey and I will be happy to answer them for you. Thanks so much, everybody.